Hey, I'm Dinia.
I'm Catherine.
I'm Youth Mary.
I'm Mia.
I'm Haley.
And I'm Karen, and this is a student guide to manage anxiety. First thing when it comes to managing anxiety, you have to recognize that you have anxiety. So, how are ways that you all recognize that you have anxiety?
I feel like
I
I
think
recognize I have anxiety sometimes, especially at night when I'm about to go to sleep and I feel like I'm not falling asleep and I start thinking
Mm.
about everything that I need to do, like a to-do list, and it just it's like all over my mind.
So it's
That's
like you're spiraling.
mm-hmm.
Mhm. I was gonna add like the same thing with me. Like it hits me at night, and I realize my body's so stiff I can't relax. That's when I realize, okay, that's peak anxiety for me. I cannot relax at all.
I
Especially
agree.
just like when you have a lot of assignments coming up and you're just thinking about all of them and there's not enough time in the day. I feel like that is.
And then with that, that leads to procrastination, and then you're just stuck in a cycle.
Yeah, and I
I
feel
agree.
like you can actually feel it in your body too. Like
Physically.
sometimes afterwards, like towards the very end of the day, like my back literally hurts and like my eyes
Mm,
are like dry, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
like I want to keep working, but I feel like I'm tired. I don't like. I need to take a break, and that's where the whole procrastination thing comes in. Like, I feel like I deserve a break, so I'll just leave it for another day. So when I feel better, but then the next day comes, and then I don't feel better, so it just keeps rolling on.
There's
yeah,
also
it's like
like,
putting it off.
yeah.
Yeah.
And being stressed out all the time is exhausting, which does not help in trying to get things done because you're
Hmm.
always exhausted.
Or like when you feel like you're clenching your jaw or you're
Oh my God,
grinding,
yes.
that
Your
like
shoulders are
carries
really
on to
tense
the
and you have to
next
like
Your
day.
shoulders are tense. Yeah, yeah.
take a deep breath. Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely physical signs to anxiety too, but I think that's when it's peaked. So unfortunately, sometimes it kind of trickles its way in because it's more subtle. You kind of
Hmm.
just your heart's racing a little, your mind's spinning, and I think the problem with students specifically often is because the workload never ends. You can always study more for a test. You can always get ahead on a new assignment. You can always continue working on a paper. So I know last night I'd done a ton of schoolwork and I felt really good about it. And I was like, I still have more tomorrow. And then I still have more due at the end of the week. So I think that honestly, that is like a major portion. I know that like 70% of college students have an- anxious symptoms, and then like 40% are actually um, typically diagnosed with anxiety. And so I think that's largely just the anticipation. And then there's also like the self frustration with not completing an assignment on time or not getting as ahead as you wanted. So I think it's the never ending, you wait until Christmas break and then you revel in summer and then it's the next semester. So I think it's just the constant anticipation of the next assignments and you're never really done until those
Yep.
grades are put in.
Yeah.
Hmm. I was
And then
gonna
not
say
to
like I
mention,
feel like, oh, you want to go
you
first?
good, go ahead.
I was gonna say I feel like stress in general and just anxiety, it feels like you're on autopilot, like without you knowing it's happening. It's like a constant cycle, and then next thing you know, it just builds up to a whole episode, and then without you realizing those signs, it's like you're stuck in procrastination up until it's like you said, like Christmas.
That's honestly, it's gonna get a little personal here. That's genuinely how I felt in April, well, towards the end of March, but April really. I was at school, I was working, and the cycle would literally just repeat. I have class, work, class, work. The cycle is the same for like the entire beginning of that year. But then, have you ever heard of this new thing? It's called the white rabbit effect. It's like where your life is in a flow, and then this white rabbit comes along, and then it throws you all
Yes.
off. It came from Alice in Wonderland. So I
Mhm.
had
Ooh.
my white rabbit moment April 1st. And so it's like for me, everything stopped. My whole life was put on pause. And I genuinely crashed out. I crashed out. I was yelling, I was screaming, I was crying, I said so many hurtful things to the people that I love because I was going through the most traumatic experience that I will ever experience. And I realized when I was done finally that I had let all of that anger and all of that pressure, all of that weight build up until I exploded. And I know that if I knew I had these problems, but I felt like if I would have addressed it then, maybe it wouldn't have blown up so big. I wouldn't have said some things that I definitely regret now. But a lot of people don't stop and try to address it. You just let it build up, and then you explode. But there are so many resources, not just whatever your school provides, but there are not the government, but there are some organizations that'll help you get either therapy or get you a doctor, a psychiatrist, someone that you can talk to.
Mhm.
And I feel like if I had just did that, I think I would have. I know I wouldn't have been okay because that white rabbit came out of nowhere.
Like we talked about earlier. But so much of it, I think, is the college age. Like you're coming out of high school. There's a lot of people taking care of siblings in college. There's a lot of people working full time in college. There's a lot of people, maybe you're living the college life and you move to a university and you rush, but there's all of the stress that comes with all of that. So I think a lot of that is not just schoolwork, but like you said, Karen, family, friend, personal relationship, just your world kind of falls apart for a minute. And I think that gets overlooked because a lot of the statistics we talk about, a lot of the mental health we talk about is like, oh, don't stress yourself out too much. But it's not always something that we can just have total control over. Like there's, like you said, that white rabbit, like sometimes things are going too well. And then something just gets mixed up. So I think a big part of the anxiety in college students as a whole isn't just the college student portion, it's the age.
I think it's also the amount of changes, especially in early college students. You're leaving all your friends. All your friends went all over the world to different colleges. You're leaving a lot of times leaving your parents as well. You're moving to a new space. It's a whole different. You go from having this rigid schedule every day of the week, you have school all the time, to having such a loose schedule, and you also, a lot of people have to work as well.
Like I like how you said the schedule thing. Like, when you're in high school, you have to wake up at this time and you have to go to school at this time, and then you have after school activities and you're busy, you do exercise, you do your homework, you're not working. But then when you transition into like a college student, you have to fit all of these things. You have to fit your classes. Sometimes people work, sometimes people have to do like internships. It's our lives, especially sometimes whenever I'm on social media and then I'll be scrolling and I'll be like, oh, so and so got married, or like, oh,
Yeah.
Oh
you
Oh
took
my
yeah.
a
God,
trip, like
yes.
have
Like the
fun, like
pressure.
you're
Yeah.
stressing about school. And it's just so hard to not compare or put yourself in a headspace where you're like constantly comparing yourself to like other people's success, and you gotta concentrate on what you're doing. And yeah, it's hard. And like Karen was saying, there are a lot of resources, especially here at Texas Women's, like, there's a whole psychology department for you. There's people out there like, wanting to
Mhm.
help you, like they're willing to help you. You just gotta like reach out and ask, and
Yeah.
there are other people like you, and it's not just you.
It's so important to recognize those signs building up because most of us, it's like what Karen mentioned, right? Like you end up having a crash out, but you're not really looking at the signs leading up to that crash out up until it's too late. It can be the smallest thing and it's the cherry on top, and that is it for you.
What do those recognition points look like for anxiety? What do you guys think? Like, what are the tells that we can start learning and studying to know when anxiety is coming up? Whether it's early on, whether we're kind of in the middle of it, or whether we're like, okay, it's like happening right now.
Mhm.
So what are those kind of like tells and recognition points for an anxious state?
It's always good to be able to recognize when you're in an anxious state or, you feel those signs. A lot of us feel those mental signs, so like that persistent worry or those racing thoughts when you can't sleep at night, or even those physical symptoms where your jaw is just like so tight and everything, or you feel like you're grinding at night, even behavioral patterns, so overworked that you just start avoiding assignments, so procrastination, or even emotional signs like you're just so irritated by everything. And so, having these signs, like recognizing them, can lead to bad habits and it can make everything just feel 1,000 times worse.
Once you recognize those bad habits, I feel like that's when the change really starts. So you can't like break a habit that you're not aware of, right? So instead of
Yes.
judging yourself, the goal is to basically pause and say, okay, like what triggered this? Why am I feeling this right now? And so that moment of awareness interrupts that automatic cycle that we were talking about, like being on autopilot. So the next step is replacing the habit. So not just by removing it, right? A lot of people try to break the habit through just like willpower alone, like, oh, I'm
Cutting
just
it.
gonna stop
Yeah.
this. Like, no, but that's usually like that doesn't work because your brain still wants that reward. It wants something that brings it comfort, stimulation, or escape. And like these are all coping mechanisms, like procrastination, oversleeping. They're coping mechanisms. It doesn't mean that it's a healthy one, it's a negative one, but it's a coping mechanism nonetheless. So instead of the unhealthy behavior, you pick a healthier alternative that meets the same need. So, for example, if stress makes you overwork or procrastinate, you could swap that reaction with something simple like taking a short walk, drinking water, stretching, doing like it's even like a quick breathing exercise. That replacement doesn't have to be complicated. It needs to basically interrupt the old pattern long enough to weaken it. This is actually backed by neuroscience. So our brains are constantly changing and new habits literally build new pathways. So
Say the whole thing that it's not gonna happen from one day to another. Like it's it's a routine, especially like I feel like it really works when you're in school and you already know what classes you have to go to, and then after
Mhm.
a certain amount of time you know how much time you're gonna need to do that homework or spend in that class.
Mhm.
So building a routine, yeah, it's not gonna happen overnight, but over time as the semester goes, you could start doing things on a schedule. Like feel like if you write it down and you can physically see it, like, hey, I have this and this and this I need to do. Like I'm not gonna overwhelm myself, but I know like throughout the whole week I have to do these things. These things need to be get done, and then fit. I have to fit them in my schedule.
I feel like with building healthy habits, one of the main points is you don't need to do everything at once. You don't need to completely change every single bad habit that you have into a good one. That is unrealistic and very overwhelming. And a lot of times you get overwhelmed and then you drop all of them. So I think a big part of building healthy habits is starting small and working to go from there. So you might focus on breathing exercises to help with your manage your anxiety, and then move on to maybe fixing your sleep schedule, and then move on to, like you said, Mary, planning out your assignments and planning out your day, and just it really making it a gradual thing is much easier than overhauling your entire life in a day. um, and healthy routines definitely support more than just your anxiety. Can help with a lot more than just managing, and it just overall, those small improvements can make a huge difference.
I
And
think the importance also is obviously you have to know you're in an anxious state and you have to recognize that there's a bad habit you're following. And the argument could be, okay, well, if I'm anxious and my body's tired, then I need to sleep. And if I oversleep, then my body needs it. And there is truth in that to an extent. However, when we start running away from different responsibilities because of that anxiety, we're letting that anxiety have hold over us. So, although it can be pretty difficult to say, like, yeah, I'm going to exercise this amount of times per week and build those daily healthy habits, it is necessary, because if not, you stay in that anxious cycle. I would argue that you're kind of at a baseline of anxious, and then anything just kind of spikes it. So, although it can be enticing to lay in bed, to do the assignment last minute, get an 80 on it, and call it a day, that's what keeps that cycle going. So, it is so important that we recognize when we're anxious, and also just putting in those healthy habits because we know it benefits us, whether it's easy or not. And like you said, Catherine, it's not going to be done all in one day. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to fail. But I think overall, the importance is just moving away from the anxiety best you can with those breaking and building habits. So,
You know, as college students, I feel like we know able to identify when these things are happening and using the good strategies at like reaching out and finding resources and everything, we can like turn that overwhelming feeling into like positive things. And that'll help us not only academically, but in life as well.
yeah, just as people. Yeah.
There are a lot of resources. You don't have to do this by yourself. I know it can feel very overwhelming to get if you're struggling, if a huge part of your stress is due to your academics, and maybe you feel like your grades aren't where you should be, or maybe you feel like you are struggling to grasp material. Asking for help and getting that support and tutoring can be a big weight off your shoulders.
Backing off what Catherine said, here at TW, they have CAPS, which is Counseling and Psychology Services. If you live on campus, RHA does mental health workshops at least, I want to say 2-3 times a month. There are several different academic tutors that you can use. There are several peer support groups on and off campus.
Overall, the aim as college students is just to help ourselves when we feel overwhelmed with anxiety, responsibilities, teaching yourself how to cope properly through problem solving strategies, anything, anxiety states that you're recognizing, habit breaking, habit forming, and finding those available resources is essential to thriving instead of surviving.